All right, and I have everyone here, right?
Everyone that matters.
All right, whenever you are ready there.
Yep, good to go.
Yeah.
I don't see, does anybody see Ms. Blythe in there?
She's at the city
She's
center.
in council chambers.
Yeah, but shouldn't she
I'm
be
here.
showing up on the screen?
She will be when the splash
He'll get
comes
it.
down.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll get it.
It's first time being here. I'm not quite sure. I'm here.
All right, thank you, everyone. Sorry for the late start. Welcome to the second meeting of January for North College Hill City Council. We will start, as always, with our prayer for the NCH City Council. God, our Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all the people who live in our city. Give all the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to do the very best. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can with your help and guidance. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
We'll call this meeting to order, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Here.
Ms. Blythe,
Here.
Ms. Underwood? Here. Mr. Miller Novak,
Here.
Ms. Zorb,
Here,
Ms. Hartman,
Here.
Ms. Anderson,
Here.
all present.
Thank you, ma'am. You have tonight's agenda in front of you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any discussion? Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood? Yes. Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes,
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
and Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to adopt the agenda passes 7-0.
All right, thank you. You also have the minutes from our last meeting on January 4th.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adopt the January 4th meeting minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Mr. President, I don't know if it matters, but adjournment is spelled wrong at the bottom. I don't know if that really matters, but I don't know if we want to make a motion to change adjournment to be spelled with an N after the R.
Can take care of that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Typographical errors can be corrected.
Cool.
You know, spell check doesn't happen when you use all caps.
No, it doesn't.
So I'll take care of that. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. And I can second the motion with that being done.
Thank you. Motion from Ms. Bailey, second from Ms. Anderson to accept the minutes. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Miss Blythe,
Yes.
Miss Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller-Novak,
Yes.
Miss Zorb,
Yes.
Miss Hartman,
Yes.
Miss Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. President, I do hang on to every word that you utter. Was this a motion then to amend it or to adopt it?
To adopt it.
Okay, thank you.
And
Motion
that passed
passes 70.
7-0.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, Ms. DeWald, communications.
All right, for our communications tonight, we have the North College Hill Police Department's December monthly report. There is a summary of the fire task force that was sent out. We also have from Ohio Ethics Commission notification of filing the requirement for elected officials, and I've taken care of that. And then also, in one of the emails I received from the fire chief, the yearly end report, that as many times as I amended the agenda, I never did put it in there. So you all have an electronic copy, and those that want a hard copy, they have this all in their mailbox, except for the Ohio Ethics Commission.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for our clerk?
Mr. President, I do.
Ms. Orb.
Ms. Dewald, can you help me understand what the Ohio ethics thing? I know that that's a big deal and I don't want to miss any deadlines. Can you tell me is this the thing that we have to file, or is this something you have to file?
This is something that I have to file. They send me a list of everyone. I'm opening it up like you can read it.
I see
So
it. I see it.
they send me a list of everyone in North College Hill elected officials that need to file their ethics commission. So I have to look this list over and make sure that these people are the ones that indeed need to fill out. And it's also ones who have, stepped down and moved out of the city. So their names are on this list as well. You all receive your own individual invitation from the commission to fill out your own form.
So I
Mr.
presume this is the precursor for us getting our notification. Is
I
that
don't-
true?
Yeah, I would assume that myself, because I really don't know what the process is. But I did fill one of these out last year. So
Mr. President,
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Anderson.
it may just be because I was just talking with the Ethics Commission about other stuff to fill out, but I already received my notice for this, so I don't know if other people may have too, but I already received the email for it.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller-Novak.
Yeah, so Mary DeWald gets a list where she has to tell everybody who's on council. It's just a checklist, but everybody on council should have gotten an email already. It goes out after the first of the year. You have until May to finish it, but obviously no reason to wait. So Mary Jo, you can do yours at any time between now and May. It's already there. If you go to Ohio Ethics Commission and log in, you should be able to do it now.
Okay, did that take care of it for you, Ms. Orb? All right. Thank you, Ms. DeWald. We'll now turn our attention to council committees, starting with budget and finance.
Hi, guys. We met last Monday. We talked about, we briefly touched on levies. We also talked about a lot of legislation that's on here, including the OWPC skip grant one, road salt, home buyers assistance fund. So we thought all of those out, just trying to stay ahead of the curve on them so that way they don't sneak up and bite us later on. Other than that, our next meeting will be the second Monday in February at 7:30 p.m.
That will be February 8th.
February 8th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, City and Community Development and Recreation.
Our last meeting was last Monday at 6:30 p.m. We spoke about getting an RFP out to update our comprehensive plan. That apparently, sorry, I did not get out in time. That's okay. We'll have that out on our next council meeting. And then we talked about potentially if we wanted to start creating a plan for in the future, if we wanted to put a park levy on the ballot of what we would do as far as creating the plan in the committee. And our next meeting will be February 8th at 6:30 p.m. And we also welcomed Ms. Blythe as the chair/co-chair of finance. I'm sorry, of City and Community Development, or Ms. Anderson. Ms. Anderson as the co-chair of City and Community Development and Recreation.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Next up, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next meeting, we haven't met since our meeting in December 28th. Our next meeting is January 25th. Public Safety is at 7:30.
And if you don't mind, I'll correct you. It's February 25th.
Okay,
You said January.
I did. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Wait, isn't it?
And
Wait,
who-
it is January 25th, right?
No, you're right.
That's
I'm
next
sorry.
week.
Wow, this is only the 19th.
Don't throw me off, Mr. President.
I apologize, and that's the kind of day it's been, so thank you. Thanks for correcting me, Ms. Underwood, after I put my foot in my mouth. All right, up next, Rules and Public Policy.
Same thing. We last met on December 28th, and our next meeting is January 25th at 6:30.
Are you sure it's January 25th? Say it with conviction.
Pretty sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Anyone have an ad hoc report? Going once, going twice. All right, I hear no ad hoc reports, so we'll move into the administrative reports. Mayor Nichols is not with us tonight, so I do believe she had given a statement to Mr. Mosby and was looking to defer her time to Chief Fells. So, Mr. Mosby?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, the mayor would like to thank all of those who served on the task force for all of the hard work they put into developing a recommendation for our city's fire department. And specifically, she would like to thank former Mayor Maureen Mason, Councilmember Erica Underwood, Council President Mike Graver, Mrs. Laureen Zaff, Kyle Scales, Kenny Crawford, Joe Plack, Chief Brian Fells, and Finance Manager Ari Hall for all of their efforts in developing a recommendation to stabilize, maintain, and address the needs of our fire department. With that said, she would like to yield a portion of her time to Fire Chief Brian Fells in order to provide a brief summary of the activities of the fire task force. And I believe Mr. Fells is on, so I will turn it over to him.
Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time. Yeah, tonight I wanted to give you a real quick summary of the efforts of the Fire Task Force and how we got here. Many of you recall back in 2017, we ran our first fire levy in the history of our department. It was a 3.25 mil levy. At that time, we had many of the issues that we're still struggling with today. Prior to running that levy, we had explored every conceivable option, from privatization to the formation of a joint fire district, contracted services. We had hosted a number of speakers, had presentations, actually went out and sought RFPs from neighboring townships, and we reviewed a previous RFP obtained several years earlier from the city of Cincinnati. Once it was deemed that none of these was feasible at the time, I was asked to come up with options, namely for a levy that were within 5 mil limitation. These consisted of a 2.8, a 3.8, and a 4.8 mil option. I'm not sure how the elected officials at the time came up with the 3.2 that ultimately ended up on the ballot, but it represented 0.4 mils more than the 2.8 mil option I presented, which at that point was just enough to keep the lights on. And in essence, the proverbial can got kicked down the road again. Fast forward 2 years, and I'm sure pretty much everyone here remembers the joint fire district effort. So our neighbors to the north, who've been suffering many of the same issues, had a similar staffing model, similar increasing costs for service demands, approach us with an opportunity. Mr. Graver was the president of that effort, but unfortunately, he's well versed in our many issues, but unfortunately the effort failed. It consists of a 3.9 mil levy that the voters either thought was too steep, the effort too rushed, or most of them, a lot of the feedback we got was that they simply preferred to maintain their community identity and their own fire department. So we plowed ahead, and despite receiving a little more than was necessary to keep the lights on with our 3.2 mil levy, we made the most of our taxpayer dollars, and we were able to hire 3 full-time personnel, maintain our paramedic service, which was a main point of contention back then, and address a number of capital needs, including vehicles and building needs. Since that effort failed, Mount Healthy has subsequently passed 17 mils worth of permanent fire levy and are on their way to addressing their problems, many of those that are still plaguing us. Most notably, the inability to, with our current model of 4 people on duty and predominantly part-time staffing, to meet the increasing service demands of the community. So the mayor tasked the group of 6 that Mr. Mosby mentioned and the host of associate members with coming up with comprehensive, sustainable, long-term solutions to ensure our continued delivery of service despite projected shortfalls in the general fund revenue, and to ultimately educate the community on the scope of these issues and gain support for their recommendations. So I hope all of you had a chance to look over the recommendations to the mayor. I'll cover those briefly. Those recommendations are based on a 5-year 12 mil levy. That levy was a compromise. We had numbers as low as 8 to 10 to as high as 17. But the group as a whole, after looking at all the data from the surrounding communities, the employee marketplace, our unique conditions here, decided on these options and are the recommendations, I'm sorry. So the number one thing was to increase the on-duty personnel from 4 every day to 5. This allows us to more accurately cover 2 paramedic ambulances and the ever-increasing overlapping calls that we received. This year, we were roughly 2,700 calls, which is about 125% increase in calls from when back in 2002, when the 4-person part-time staffing model was adopted. So this not only helps us meet the service demand, but it also reduces our reliance on mutual aid, which is also a big point of contention with our neighbors, and provides for more efficient, timely care of your emergency. The second part of that staffing piece is to change from this 4-person, 1 full-time, 3 part-time personnel staffing model to a 5-person staffing model consisting of 3 full-time and 2 part-time per day. This provides us a more dependable base of personnel that are less apt to call off, be subject to scheduling conflicts, or be recalled by full-time employers elsewhere. Some of you may know this, but when the COVID crisis kind of started off, Clover Nook Healthcare was making the news, so to speak, both publicly and behind the scenes as one of the hot spots in Hamilton County. It even reached the desk of the city manager of Cincinnati and the fire chief. And at one point I fielded a conference call, I think all the way to the mayor and city manager there, that included the fire chief, where they were considering recalling all the Cincinnati firemen and prohibiting them from working outside of the city of Cincinnati. Only with a lot of begging and pleading was I able to stave off that execution, which, if you don't know this or not, roughly 50% of your department is made up of Cincinnati firemen who work here part-time. So that would have effectively shut us down. We had 2 or 3 other guys working, Mason, Madeira, Indian Hill, Monroe, that had this similar circumstances. 2 of the 3 I was able, after discussions with their chiefs, to keep them from being recalled back to their departments. So our reliance on part-time personnel has never been more, I should say the problems with reliance on part-time personnel has never been more prevalent than with this COVID crisis. And this kind of illustrates, God forbid we have an earthquake, a tornado, something of a larger magnitude that impacts multiple communities, how vulnerable we are relying on full-time firefighters from other departments. Now, that being said, I told you roughly 50% are Cincinnati firefighters. About 85% overall are full-time firefighters for the other surrounding communities: Springfield Township, Forest Park, Coleraine, Mount Healthy, you name it. So when push comes to shove, 75% of the department or more, you can expect them to be recalled to their full-time employers and leave us hanging. So the third part of that, and the main part of that, is our employee compensation. We are well below the average in both full-time and part-time personnel of what we pay. The last 3 years have seen 0, 0, and 0 for our guys across the 3 years. And I just actually got off the phone this afternoon with the Mount Healthy's fire chief, and their starting salary is going to be 15% more than our top out salary for full-time personnel once they get fully staffed here, hopefully by the end of February. So, I've seen some things on Facebook and social media that, the fire chief's only concentrating on salaries and personnel. Well, unfortunately, yes, I am, because that's where the service is. It's, the fancy fire trucks and fire stations or whatever are great, but where the rubber meets the road is the people. If you don't have the people, you can't get them, you can't retain them, quality people. Doesn't matter what the fire truck looks like or how fancy the fire station is. So the fourth part of that was also we have some capital needs. So we live in a building that's, darn near 100 years old. We were lucky in the first levy to be able to replace some of the HVAC units, the windows, address some garage door needs, and then also replace a 2002 ambulance, which we just got this year. But there are still plenty of other things that need addressing. The electrical systems, the plumbing, all needs to be replaced. And then we also have a 1994 fire engine that serves as our backup anytime the primary fire truck goes out for service or breaks down, which that thing's a 2008 now, so it's becoming more and more frequent. The last part of this, obviously you are well aware of the struggles with the general fund and the lack of revenue needed to keep up with cost increases. So the last piece of this was to basically reduce the fire department's current general fund need by $100,000 annually. And so that is, I know there's been some talk of the police needing an increase and things like that, but another goal of this 12 mil levy was to free up some of that money in the general fund to be used for other things. So, and that's really it. I'm hoping that Ms. Underwood, that was next Monday, I think, right? Not February, it was January. I will be
That's correct.
I'll be presenting with in lots more detail how we got here, how these recommendations came to be, and discussing all the problems and all that with a much more detailed PowerPoint. So I appreciate the time. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Ward.
Just one quick question, Chief Fells. You mentioned COVID and how City of Cincinnati tossed around the idea of reducing or limiting the cross work kind of stuff. I'm curious to know, do you mandate that your employees wear a mask at all times?
I do. Now I can't be there in every run, but yes, they are supposed to wear a mask in every run. And if you remember, initially we started off before we really knew what this virus was. It was the full level A. You saw us in the long ponchos down to our ankles, the full respirators, the whole 9 yards. We have since scaled that back to like a half face mask or a medical mask. But yeah, they are supposed to be wearing on every run and every time they're out of the firehouse in the public square, so to speak. So much like everyone else.
I'll give you a side note, tell you, you might want to reiterate that. How's that?
I can.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Ms. Blythe.
Hi, Mr. Fells, my name's Larry Blythe. I'm one of the newer members on council. On January 7th, I sent an email to council questioning if you have any figures or options or what we could do with a slightly lower fire levy at 8 or 9 mil, because the one for 12 was rejected by the citizens about 2 years ago. So have you considered anything in between as to what you could do with a, 8 or 9 mil? Or are you just saying that that's insufficient and it has to be the 12 mil? Thank you.
No problem. The number that was rejected by the citizens with the Joint Fire District was 13.9 mils. So the Fire Task Force did vet many different millage options, and each one of those has a give and a take, so to speak. So yeah, we were down as low as 8. We were around 10. We vetted as high as 17 mils. The 12 was the compromise. All that was done in the committee with the data and all that in front of them. And then based primarily on the staffing need. It's the difference between 10 and 12 mils is a full-time person per day. And that's what it is. And then we looked at all the staff schedules for the last year and the struggles we have with getting people. We turn over 6 to 8 employees a year. We have trouble getting new people other than friends of friends and referrals, but even then we're lucky if we keep somebody about 2 years before they move on or they get burned out. So because we employ so many full-time firefighters, their minimum work week before they ever work a day in North College Hill is 48 to 53 hours. The minimum shift they can work for us is 12, the max 24. So a lot of them are, you can imagine if your every work week was a 60-hour or 72-hour work week. If you're working North College Hill in the evening, you're either coming from or going to an employer. And the burnout rate is very high, especially as the call volume goes up. And our call volume typically is in the evening hours. After 6 o'clock, between 6 and 2 in the morning, much like the police second shift is their busy shift. So there's not a whole lot of rest to be gained. So a lot of the admin, cleaning duties and clerical stuff is all done during the day, but the poor fellows that are coming from working all day at a full-time employer, it's our place in the evening. Yeah, it's very hard with the part-time staffing model. So to get us at least 3 full-time guaranteed people every day, we needed to take it to the 12. Now Mount Healthy's doing something different. They're doing 2 full-time and 3 part-time per day in their model. They also have a full-time chief that supplements that Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So it's not a quite apples to apples comparison.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
I don't have a question, but I just kind of have a comment. I know that with the last levy that was rejected a couple years ago, I know that a lot of people were concerned about how much money the levy was, but I know with talking to the people that I know in my neighborhood that a big concern was that NCH was going to be paying the price and then Mount Healthy was going to be reaping most of the benefits. So I don't know exactly if it was turned down because it was a super high levy in general, or if it was more circumstantial. So just to kind of like expand maybe on your answer, Mr. Fells, and to kind of answer Mrs. Blythe's question, but I don't know, I can kind of see more where people, especially if it was more clearly like stated how the money, the 12,000 is going to be spent, which it sounds like you're doing an excellent job explaining it, Mr. Fells. I think that more NCH citizens would be behind the 12 mil.
Yeah, I hope so. I know some of the feedback, and Mr. Graver can probably echo this, was a lot of, we did a poor job, and I'll admit to this, it's as much my fault as anybody's. We did a poor job of getting the information out there. The opportunity presented itself. There was kind of some muddying of the waters with the Fire Act grants and SAFER grants that were part of that. And we only had a few months and a very limited budget to roll it out there, to create this thing and get it out there to the voters. So a lot of people felt it rushed. A lot of people were misinformed. I know Miss Underwood, she really didn't get any information on it and voted no simply based on that. So I'm hoping that this time, we've been doing this all summer and into the fall, carrying over to the winter. We're out ahead of this if we keep ahead of it. And we have a good plan. The fire district, or the fire task force, met again just last week, and we have a comprehensive plan moving forward in the spring and summer to market this thing. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we're successful this time.
So,
Mr.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
so right quick though, so my only fear is that a lot of the people in North College Hill that I would say probably voted no, just based on the price alone, are senior citizens. And I'm kind of afraid that we keep putting the burden on them, because most of the homeowners here are senior citizens. And so I'm a little concerned with adding more of a millage rate to their current property taxes. But I guess after we got all of our assessments back and our assessed value clearly went up, well, mine did, speaking for myself, have we looked at the numbers since then to see if 12 mils is still like rock bottom?
That's a good question. I just had my my house reassessed. I that would be a question more for maybe Miss Hall. I don't know when those assessments are done and when they actually impact your assessed value, when that goes into effect. That is a possibility. I don't know. Anybody there have any commentary on that? I really don't know, to be honest with you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I have invited Chief Fells to come and kind of present some of the slides that he shared with the fire task force in more detail with regard to staffing and just kind of a more detailed breakdown of how the fire levy will work. And I did that actually at Ms. Blythe's request. So Chief Fells has graciously agreed to come to our meeting on January 25th, not February, January 25th, so that he can actually present a more detailed breakdown for us. So obviously, I'm hoping that, anyone who's listening to this meeting today and who wants to see that more detailed breakdown is more than welcome, obviously, to come to our committee meeting next week. The Public Safety Committee meeting, and Chief Fells has agreed to kind of show us the breakdown so that anyone who has questions about those breakdowns and how we got to where we were, the recommendations, we can do that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Blythe.
my questioning in my letter was, do you have any statistics on the 8 or 9 mil? When you were coming up with the figures for the 12 mil, did you keep any of your statistics for 8 or 9? I know you mentioned 10, but for instance, when I looked at the page where you were talking about full-time and part-time employees and how much money you would generate per year, what I'm asking for is a breakdown of what you can do with 8 or 9 mil in the similar breakdown on page, I guess it's 2, where it says recommendations. I wanted a breakdown of what you could do with the 8 or 9 mil. I don't know if it's possible to get that at the presentation, but I just like to see what we could do with that.
Yeah,
And it's, like I said, it's under recommendations on the second page, and it mentions the annual generation, full-time, part-time. And also it says possibly replacing a fire truck. So that was my general question regarding my letter that I sent to council. So
Okay.
I'll be there to look at the 12 mil stats, but I wanted to see if we could have a breakdown of something lower. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President. If there's no more questions, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you for your time tonight, Chief Fells, coming and discussing this with us. So appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the city administrator's report. Mr. Mosby.
Yes, Mr. President, I wanted to go back. The mayor had not concluded with her report. She wanted to yield the remainder of her time to Councilmember Matt Miller Novak to describe an exciting new initiative that they've collaborated on. So I'll yield to Mr. Miller Novak.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't prepare well for this. I expected that Tracy would do it and probably do it better than me. So I will try to describe it. Essentially, a few of us have been talking, and between myself and the administration and Ms. Underwood. And the idea is basically to start coming up with some ideas on how to improve the community, whether through business development, other community improvement projects and otherwise, and to start having conversations about any way, whether big or small, that we can improve the community for the citizens. And, you know, the conversation kind of developed into the fact that, you know, our different branches of governments and committees and things like that are pretty fragmented. I certainly don't get to talk much necessarily to the CIC or the Chamber of Commerce and the school board. So the idea was to make somewhat of a unified committee that will be spearheaded by the administration. In all intents and purposes, it is the mayor's committee, but I think myself and Ms. Underwood are going to serve on it, as well as trying to find a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, one from the CIC, and at least one or two from the school itself, whether the superintendent or a board member, maybe both, or two board members. We'll kind of figure it out as we go. And eventually try to include one or two people just from the community who are not necessarily government representatives at all, to kind of sit down and brainstorm, think about our resources we have available between the school district and the city and the business community, and all these forces we have to bring to bear about how we can set some goals that hopefully between the city government, that includes the mayor and council and the school board and, you know, the business association, the Chamber of Commerce, I know, name change, that we can all work together and pool our resources to find and achieve some common goals. So we'll kind of keep you updated as it gets formed and let everybody know what's going on with it. We certainly will want to reach out to other members of the government to just survey and to get some ideas and hopefully make some proposals. And hopefully this council will get on board with some of those things if we could afford to do them. And the administration will do so as well. And even the school board might hopefully work with us. So we're excited about it. It's a way to start thinking about some material progress in the city. And that's it. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. But other than that, I'm going to yield the floor to the next person who has to speak.
Any questions for Mr. Miller Novak? I hear none. Thank you, sir, for that report. Mr. Mosby, does that conclude the mayor's report now?
That does, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, sir. We will now turn it over to you for your administrator's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm actually very excited. I have a lot to share with council tonight. I'd like to begin with today. We received a very generous gift in the form of a police cruiser from Westchester Township. I would like to thank the township trustees for thinking of us and for their certainly their generosity in deciding to give us this police cruiser. Of course, I'd also like to thank Chief Schrand as well. But I am excited about it because clearly it does show, a working relationship, the recognition that other municipalities have of smaller cities like ours. But it was really a bright spot in our day. Of course, Chief Schrand is going to, take the markings off of the vehicle and then, of course, put our markings on there. But we're very excited about it. It is a Ford Explorer. And so we're definitely looking forward to not only getting it into the fleet, but putting it to use. Also, last week, we also celebrated the installation of our EV charging stations. I'm very excited about that because that was part of the mayor's vision for our city. And I learned during that ceremony that our EV charging stations are the only ones within a 5-mile radius. So I am very excited that we're out ahead of the curve on this. It is also a part of our transportation vision, which will also be working hand in hand with the transit center that we're diligently working on as well. But we got a lot of positive feedback. In fact, I was very grateful that former council member Jim O'Shea came out and celebrated with us. So it was a really good time that we had. I would like to also say to Councilmember Miller Novak, sir, I was inspired by your comments during the last council meeting, and I really want to thank you for those words. You lit a fire in me, and I'm very grateful for your vision. And I do want to make it very public that, I absolutely would like to work with you on achieving some of those things. Let's, as you pointed out, let's have our eyes on a common goal, and let's begin to change North College Hill. But I just wanted to thank you for that very inspiring speech. I also wanted to say thank you to Ms. Hartman as well, because I know although she's graced with an economy of words, the words that she did speak really resonated with me and impacted me greatly. And so I was very, once again, inspired by listening to what she had to say. I've also wanted to express just an appreciation for working with President Graver and Ms. DeWald. It really has been just a joy to be able to work together with you, to be able to actually get some things accomplished when there are problems, to be able to work with each of you, to be able to work them out, because all of you together really help to give me a sense of community, and I am very grateful for that. As we look out for this year, I think there's a lot of things that all of us know that we have. We have a very ambitious list of objectives this year. I mean, we've got 2 levies, one coming up, of course, in May, and then the other in November. But I really get this very strong sense that we can do this. I sense great optimism, and I certainly get that from the mayor every time that I'm with her, and I'm hearing it here on council as well. And I'm just glad to be a part of this particular team. So, Mr. President, without taking up too much more time, I will just say thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Any questions for the city administrator? I hear none. Next item on the agenda is the Law Director's Report. I do not see his presence here this evening. So we will move on to,
Mr. President, yes, I'm apologize. He did reach out to me. He did have another meeting, and so he was not able to be at this meeting tonight.
thank you. Next up, Finance Director's Report. Ms. Hall.
Good evening. I do not have a report to give this evening.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, that brings us to call of members. We'll start with Ms. Bailey.
I do have something that I want to share. And I've debated sharing about it all day, actually. So Saturday night, I saw one of my neighbors fire 2 gunshots into his home. One of my neighbors walked over here who also saw it. And we raised the level of concern because this person is not always in the right frame of mind. And so I called our non-emergency phone number and let them know that they should probably do a well check over there. And no one ever came. And so then, after talking to a couple of people from the community, it was pointed out to me that unless I call 911 in those situations, there may be times that police officers don't show up. And so I'm just kind of conflicted a little bit because it's a very serious situation that I felt like was kind of laughed off. And I have a 6-year-old who runs around on this street all day with his friends, and it could have gotten really ugly. And nobody knows what happened over there at all. And that's just simply because I guess the concern of calling the non-emergency number of saying, hey, probably want to go check on this address, even resonated with our police officer who answered the phone at the time on Saturday. So I just kind of want to reiterate that some of us have it drilled in our heads from Mr. Waller to call the non-emergency number to save on dispatch fees, but it would be nice to know that when we do call that somebody is going to show up. So that's all I have, other than stay safe, everyone. And yesterday was my birthday, so just stay safe and just keep an eye out for things and call 911. Don't call the non-emergency number anymore, I guess.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Happy belated birthday. Next up, Ms. Blythe.
My comments were regarding my letter to council of January 7th regarding the fire levy. So I already spoke those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blythe. Next, Ms. Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have really been in prayer about whether or not I really wanted to talk about this, but I feel that it's necessary for me to kind of talk about this particular issue. It's about tone policing. Tone policing is a personal attack based on criticizing a person who expresses any kind of emotion or passion when they're arguing for a specific point. It often detracts from the validity of any statement or arguing because you're attacking the tone in which it was presented and not the message that's being presented. Now, it's often so effective because it renders a perfectly legitimate argument or complaint and makes it seem irrational, especially when the person who's attempting to police someone else's tone maintains a sense of calm. So tone policing is also an oppression tactic. It's systematically used to keep oppressed people or people who have been historically oppressed and their issues, the issues that they raise, silence. It's why it really kind of resonates with me. So Black women are no strangers to this specific tactic. It is where the stereotype angry Black woman comes from. So tone policing, some examples of tone policing are, why are you so upset? Why do you sound so hostile? You seem really aggressive. Why are you so defensive? You really need to calm down. And over the course of my career and my years being on this earth, it is something that I've had to deal with. And that whole angry Black woman stereotypes. It depicts Black women as angry, loud, rude, and aggressive in an effort to invalidate what they are saying. And it is also an attempt to strip Black women of the complexities of emotion by calling her an angry Black woman. Let me just say that Black women have plenty of reasons to be angry, plenty, okay? But this specific tactic is designed to dehumanize and reinforce stereotypes in an attempt to silence us. I just want to let my colleagues know that I am unapologetically a Black woman. And sometimes you're going to hear passion in my voice. It doesn't make me an angry Black woman. It doesn't mean that what I have to say is any less valid. I do get frustrated from time to time, and you may hear that in my voice, but it should not invalidate what I am saying. I am going to give my colleagues the benefit of the doubt this time, because I was referred to as hostile a week ago, and that, I have to tell you, is offensive. I am not going to police my tone, and I'm not going to allow anyone else to police my tone. I would just ask, and again, this is my effort to explain why tone policing is offensive. I know that it happens to a lot of women, but it especially happens to Black women. And I'm just trying to educate. I'm not trying to attack, just educate. Also, I would just like to say thank you very much for allowing me to get on my soapbox for a moment there. Everybody, please stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Up next, Mr. Miller Novak.
That's a very informative act to follow. Actually, I do want to say thanks to Miss Underwood. I do employment discrimination suits, and I've always tried to describe what you just stated with some of my clients that I've never known the phrase tone policing. So, thanks. Now I got a phrase to put on something I think I've described to my clients many times. So I appreciated that. And to kind of turn to a couple other things too. I do want to thank Mr. Mosby for the kind words. I do appreciate that. And I am looking forward to this year, and I'm pretty excited about that charging station as well. And I was not aware that there's no other charging stations in the immediate area, so that's pretty cool. It's nice to kind of have an edge on things like that up front. And then I do want to state some recognition for Martin Luther King Day, even though it was yesterday. But I think of my time on Earth, it's never seemed quite so relevant as it has this year for obvious reasons. I know obviously this is local government, but it's been particularly trying to watch some of the scenery that had occurred last week or the other week in Washington, DC, and so much of the vocal hatred. So I think yesterday was particularly a very important Martin Luther King Day. And it's also really important for us to discuss issues relating to diversity in our community, whether on our council, as Ms. Underwood just described, or with our residents. And because we are a very diverse city, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud of how we function as a diverse city. I think we do a really really good job in North College Hill relating to one another. It's good to see that our diversity typically works on a high functioning level in this city. And I think that's all I have, actually. So I'm going to pass the mic down the row.
Thank you, Mr. Miller-Novak. Next up is Ms. Zorb.
I don't really have anything at this time other than I am super excited to hear all the new ideas that this new committee is going to come up with for our city. Go city.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb. Ms. Hartman.
Hello, I have nothing at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. And finally, Ms. Anderson.
Hi guys. Okay, I have a little bit of a list. So first, happy birthday, Miss Bailey. Happy belated birthday. That really makes me sad that the non-emergency number didn't work for you, because I've called that a lot. I worked at North College Hill Skyline for like 4 years off and on, and there were so many times I called that number and they were really responsive, and so that makes me sad that they weren't responsive to you, but hopefully that's not the case every time. But next, I also want to thank Miss Underwood for talking about tone policing. I don't know if you guys are super familiar with this term, but I've always known it as gaslighting, and it's a form of gaslighting. And I know that that's something that in my education world we talk about a lot, especially with the girls in your classroom, with the Black girls in your classroom, with young people in your classroom. You never just want to listen to the tone, and it's just as true with adults, obviously. So even more true, their words should mean what they mean and not their tone. So I'm really appreciative that you said something. Next, I also wanted to thank Mr. Mosby for getting up the charging stations. I'm really excited about that. And I was talking with my dad, who doesn't get pumped about a lot, and he's really pumped about the charging stations and about the transit center. So that was pretty exciting to see. Also, yesterday with MLK Day, I thought that it was a pretty reflective day for me, and in it I feel like I reflected a lot on communication and how honest and open communication, like Miss Underwood shared and like a lot of us have been sharing in the last couple meetings, is so important, especially in government. And I just hope that with this new year of 2021 we can continue that honest and open communication. And I want to especially thank Ms. Zorb, who's been so helpful and communicative with me being new, and same with Mr. Mosby, who has been so communicative with me and helpful. And I hope that as a whole we can continue that open and honest communication with each other. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. All right, next on the agenda is our legislation, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Dewald.
So we have a first reading on Resolution 4, a resolution authorizing the City of North College Hill to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and/or Local Transportation Improvement Programs or program, and to execute, contracts as required. First reading. We also have a first reading on Resolution 5, a resolution authorizing participation in the ODOT road salt contracts awarded in 2021 and declaring an emergency. We have a first reading on Ordinance 1, 2021. An ordinance to establish a North College Hill Home Buyers Assistance Fund titled the Down Payment Assistance Fund numbered 206. We have a second reading on Resolution 1, 2021, authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement and execute a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for various pedestrian improvements in North College Hill and declaring an emergency. We have a second reading on Resolution 2, 2021.
I'm sorry to
Resolution-
interrupt.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
Sorry.
ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Ward.
Sorry. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to suspend the third reading on, where was it? Sorry, I got lost.
Resolution 1,
Resolution 1,
Yes,
2021.
sorry.
2021.
Yes, exactly.
Mr.
Resolution 1.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I was trying to get there. I'll second that.
Motion for Ms. Zorb. A second by Ms. Bailey to suspend the third reading on Resolution 1-2021. Any discussion? Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
and Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I will follow that up with a motion to adopt Resolution 1, 2021.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
I will second that.
All right, motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. Bailey to adopt Resolution 01-2021. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to adopt passes 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we have, now I lost my place. We have a second reading. Resolution 2, 2021. Resolution determining to proceed to levy a renewal of additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation.
Mr. President,
Ms. Hartman.
Ms. Davis.
Oh, Ms. Bailey, I'm sorry.
Cool. I'd actually like to make a motion to suspend third reading of Resolution 2, 2021. This is our street levy renewal. Just a heads up.
Okay, we have a motion for Ms. Bailey to suspend the third reading.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Milanovak,
Yes.
Ms. Orb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the third reading passes 7-0.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
I would like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2, 2021.
We have a motion from Ms. Bailey to adopt Resolution 2, 2021.
Mr. President, I will second that motion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any discussion? Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Milanovak,
Yes.
Ms. Orb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
Yes.
and Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion to adopt ordinance 02, 2021 passes, vote 7-0.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
was that resolution or ordinance 2?
It is Resolution 2.
Just making sure. I think you said ordinance, but I don't know.
Did
if
I
that-
say, I meant resolution, sorry, thank
Okay,
you.
I knew what you meant. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson, because I learned tonight not to correct anybody because I might be wrong.
Oh,
Ms. Dewald, please proceed when you're ready.
oh, let's see. So, I'm so lost. Okay, we have a third reading on ordinance 17, 2020, an ordinance to establish salaries and staffing levels for city employees pursuant to the requirements of section 3.06 of the city of North College Hill.
Mr. President,
Zorb?
I would like to make a motion to amend ordinance 17, 2020. The change I would like to make is, if you notice, it mentions a law director and it has a salary range listed in there. I would like to change that to the original salary of $33,619.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dewald? Did you get that, Ms. Dewald?
I have that to change the law director's salary range back to the original of 33,619.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miller-Novak?
well, I guess I'm just going to request discussion on that motion. With your permission.
Mr. Milanovak, I do have one question. Because I don't make all the meetings, was that range that we're changing, Ms. Zorb? Was that 30,000 to 50,000? Was that the range you're referring to?
The copy that I'm looking at says 54,000 to 60,000.
Okay, so we're going to change the range of 54,000. And that range is 54,000 to 60,000. We want to change that to 33,619 with no range, just a flat 33,619.
That is my proposal. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Milanovak, your turn.
You know what?
Go ahead, Mr.
Hold on. I stand corrected. I have notes here that I didn't read, and apparently we did vote to change that to 30 to 50. You know what? I don't know. My notes say that Miss Bailey made the motion and Miss Underwood seconded it. Second, is that a word? Seconded?
Yeah, that's what I put in my notes.
Yeah, so I apologize. You were right. Your notes are right. Probably, because that's what my notes say.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak had asked something before, so I'd like to go back to him. Ms. Bailey, please.
for sure.
Well, let me yield to Amber, and then I'll go next. Is that all right? Because I got to pull something up on my phone real quick.
Okay. Ms. Bailey.
Mine's pretty quick. We did make that change. I'm certain that I did make the motion and that Ms. Underwood did second that. Speaking on behalf of myself, of course.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
did we amend the, I know we amended it, but did we amend the range from 30 to 50 or 30 to 60?
Mr. President,
Mr. President,
I heard Ms. Bailey first.
right quick, Matt, mine will be super quick. We did amend it between 30,000 to 50,000 because it was an all-inclusive kind of deal, and that was the direction we went because the salary shouldn't have been over X amount of money because then it would have messed up with OPERS and whatnot. So what I recall, it was 30,000 to 50,000 flat.
Mr. Miller Novak, the floor is yours.
okay, yeah. The all-inclusive was at 54 or 60, but the reason we went with a lower amount, Amber, is because we only have to prove the salary. The cost of his benefits will just be, it's compulsory anyways, right? So his salary only needs to be between 30 and 50. But that's not why I asked permission to talk, but that kind of clarified your question. I think you just asked, or your comment, or why we chose the 30 to 50 range. But I did pass on the fee arrangement that I got from Mr. Dieters. I mean, I just want to take a moment to reiterate that I can't understate the importance of having a hands-on attorney here at every meeting if we're willing to pay for it. I know that often I hear many members of this council complain that Mr. Dieters is not here, but we're not paying him to be here. So, I mean, personally, I agree with the frustrations of not having an attorney present at meetings, but I don't agree with the frustrations being voiced if we're not willing to pay for it. So I will be voting against that motion because I believe we need more hands-on legal work. I believe we need an attorney present. I know there's been things that have come up on the regular that his guidance would be very appreciated and actually potentially help us get things done in a more expedient manner and hopefully achieve more in the future. So I will enthusiastically be voting against that motion, number one. And number two, I would want to clarify that I think that salary range is still fine if we don't want to amend it down to the proposed amount that Mary Jo had mentioned, because I think that would still cover the fee arrangement that was sent around by myself last week. Ms. Hall might be able to answer that better than I, but I think our salary ordinance just needs to cover his actual salary portion of that inclusive deal.
Mr. President.
Ms. Anderson.
Sorry, just to clarify, so what's on here, the 54 to 60 isn't correct. What it should be seen without Ms. Zorb's suggested change is 30 to 60 flat. Is that correct?
30 to
Mr.
50
President.
flat.
Oh, 30 to 50.
That's correct. It'd be 30 to 50. Marjorie.
Okay. And you're suggesting that we change it to the 30 number that you said, the more detailed one? Okay, just making sure that I got that correct. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Motion's on the floor.
Mr.
Ms. Underwood?
President, I actually wanted to say something kind of in addition to what Mr. Miller Novak said. For some reason, this didn't seem to make our agenda, but we actually recently had an issue because our law director didn't review a piece of legislation, and Mr. Mosby can kind of fill us in on that, but we potentially are going to lose $150,000 from our budget because of a mistake that was made. And it was, you know, it was an honest mistake, but had he reviewed that document, then perhaps that mistake wouldn't be made and we wouldn't be facing that, because that is a huge deficit from our general fund. So it's that kind of thing that our law director can kind of protect us from. And that's, I really believe that, you know, we definitely need his guidance in that.
Mr. President.
Ms. Bailey?
So I just have a couple of like clarifying questions very quick. So Matt, back to you. So I guess if we make the change to the 33619, I'm just confused on if we make that change, then we could still enter into the new fee agreement with him?
No, we wouldn't be appropriating enough
Okay.
money. What Mary Jo is doing
Okay.
is she's motioning to keep him in his current position, his current service, and his current pay. That's essentially what she's doing. So if you want to enter in the new fee agreement, you should vote no for the amendment. And we
Okay.
should keep it as is, because that salary range will give us the proper amount of money appropriated to enter into the fee agreement that I negotiated with Mr. Dieters, and we amended that fee agreement sent around, I think, last week.
Okay. And then one thing that I would like to clarify is that the piece of legislation that is actually being spoken about comes back on me, as usual. I did not write that. That came from our law director and that came in 2018. The only thing that I changed was the fee from $50 to $150 and the years. That did in fact come from them the way that it was written.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
this question's for Mr. Miller Novak. So what was the original number that he gave for us for his suggested salary?
Well, here's the thing, Marjorie. He gave us two figures, 54 and 60K. Okay, the 60K was to do all of our regular meetings, blah, 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 plus mayor's court, right? But that was to be all-inclusive, like a cap that would include OPERS. So essentially, you know, what he asked to do at the 54 number is to work backwards with Ms. Hall to see what his salary actually needs to be, where the required contributions from the city will equal 54. But I mean, let's just say it's 45. I think it's like something like 15% or something like that. Then having the salary range go up to 50 will cover it.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, because that's what I was gonna ask. You answered, because the 50, I was confused, because his suggestions was higher, but that makes sense. Okay, just making sure.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to amend.
Mr.
Ordinance
President,
1720. Ms. Bailey?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zord?
I'd like to point out again, I want to reiterate what Ms. Bailey said and kind of tagging on to what Ms. Underwood said. Ms. Underwood was stating that documents should be written by the law director. And according to Ms. Bailey, the document that was going to cost us to lose $150,000 was written by that law director, not to mention the numerous other mistakes that we have seen from him throughout just my tenure. But on top of that, even in this agreement that I'm staring at, there is no accountability in that. So even if he, again, does not uphold his end of the bargain, there's no accountability. There's no meat to this that says when he doesn't do what is specified in this document, there's no one holding him accountable to do it. And so he's just going to make for still doing.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
I don't know if you or Ms. Hall could answer this, but do we know for a fact that that the law director was the one who wrote that document and that his specific mistake was the reason that's causing the money? Or is that just a speculation?
Mr. President,
Mosby.
the legislation that is being discussed was a piece of legislation that had gone into committee. And this, by the way, this is before I got here. But the legislation had been discussed, and after it was discussed, it was not sent back to Mr. Dieters. I did speak with him about it. He had not seen it prior to its passage. So yes, I do believe that he did craft the original legislation, but he did not see it after the discussion and proposed changes were made.
Mr.
Mr. President,
Sorry.
Ms. Blythe.
Go ahead. Yeah, Ms. Blythe.
can you please reconfirm what we're about to vote on again, please?
I will before we vote.
Okay,
Did you
great.
have something else, Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I was just going to ask. So the changes that were made to the document were the ones that are causing the financial issue? Is what you're saying?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey?
I have sat through this document 3 different times, 3 different ways. And I will tell you this once again. What was changed is the word residential was taken out of this document. That was not from me at all. I think what happened was that was when we actually rewrote the legislation, and by we, I mean the law director and the previous city administrator rewrote the legislation to include commercial properties. What was changed during the beginning of all of this was the fee was changed from $50 to $150. The year was changed from 2018 to 2020. So the document itself was what was stricken out, what wasn't stricken out, that remains what actually came from the law director at that time. Because it was amended to include commercial registration. First, we only did rental registration for homes and dwellings under 4 units. And then after that, we went back in and was like, okay, if somebody's renting out a commercial building on Galbraith, we kind of need to know who's renting it and what they're doing. And that was after the record drug bust down there. And so the document itself was not written by me at all. It was sent to me by the city administrator from the law director and his team of people. So I just want to make it clear that I am in no way an attorney. I do not go in and edit these documents by any means other than change the amount of money and the year that we were discussing it. That's it. That's all.
Okay, that will end our discussion on this. So we have a motion on the floor by Ms. Zorb, a second by Ms. Bailey. The motion is to amend Ordinance 17-2020 by changing what is in there currently as a law director salary showing a range of $30,000 to $50,000 a year back to what we would call the original salary of $33,000 per year and change. Please call the roll, Ms. Dewald.
Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
No.
Mr. Miller Novak,
No.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
yes,
Ms. Anderson,
No.
motion to amend as described, to amend it back to $33,619,000 passes 4-3.
Thank you, Ms.
Mr.
Dewald.
President,
Ms. Bailey.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 17, 2020.
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb. All right, motion to adopt by Ms. Bailey, second by Ms. Zorb, and that is to adopt ordinance 17-2020 as amended. Please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
No.
Mr. Miller Novak,
No.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
yes,
Ms. Anderson.
No.
Motion to adopt passes 4-3.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dewald. That does end legislation, correct?
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda is comments from the audience, and we do not have any audience members, so we'll turn it to new business, or to old business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I know last week we talked, or 2 weeks ago, the last meeting, we talked about me being put as the co-chair for recreation and community development, but we didn't vote on it because Miss Bailey wasn't here and we wanted to check with her first and get her in the conversation. Do we need to propose that tonight then?
Mr.
I
President,
believe we do. Ms. Bailey?
I would like to nominate Ms. Marjorie Anderson as the co-chair of City and Community Development and Recreation and gladly welcome her.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
can I make a slight modification? I believe you're looking for the term vice chair and not co-chair. At
Mr.
least we don't
President,
have co-chairs for any others.
I always say co-chair just because I feel like the chairs kind of like work together. Ms. Zorb is correct. It is the vice chair. Unless
Ms.
Ms. Anderson is
Nope.
interested in
Vice
being
chair's
the
perfect. Vice chair's so good.
All right, we have the motion
Cool.
from Ms. Bailey nominating Ms. Anderson as the vice chair for the City and Community Development and Recreation Committee.
Mr. President, I'll
Need a second.
second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb. Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Blythe,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman,
yes,
Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, and Ms. Anderson, thank you for stepping up, taking that role, and Ms. Dewald, that does fill all our chair, vice chair roles, correct?
Let me check just to be sure.
I think
Hey,
that was the
Jim.
last one.
Can you grab this door? She opened that door. Would you close that, please? Thank you. Okay. That has everything filled in then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other old business? All right, hearing none, we'll move to new business. There is one item on the agenda for new business. That is Resolution 6, 2021, which is a resolution declaring the necessity of levying a replacement tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation and requesting the county auditor to certify matters in connection therewith. Resolution 6, 2021 is in regards to the proposed fire levy millage that we have discussed already tonight. So we put it on new business just so that everyone could see a copy of it. I am sending it to the Public Safety Committee for review. So that will be next Monday.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey?
may I suggest that it goes to committee of the whole?
Say that again. I didn't follow.
May I suggest that it goes to committee of the whole? Just because I feel like that this is something pretty big, actually really big. And I think that getting all 7 members of council on this in a committee would be far more progressive than putting it in a specific committee and just having some members of that committee there. Well, some members of council in that committee, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but I believe that any of us can attend that committee meeting on Monday.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
while I certainly understand Ms. Bailey's reasoning for saying that, and I see your point also that anyone can attend. So if it's not going to be in a committee of the whole, then I'm going to strongly encourage anyone who is not on safety to please attend the safety meeting on Monday so that everyone gets the same information and we all hear it.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am, I would agree with that. So, and keep in mind too, it had already been mentioned that Chief Fells will be present there with a presentation as well. So Resolution 6, 2021 will be discussed next week at the Public Safety Committee meeting. Is there any other new business?
Mr. President.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes, we actually need to schedule a special meeting, probably 10 or 15 minutes to rectify the said piece of legislation that is incorrect, as letters have already been sent out to various property owners, and it did not make our agenda tonight.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I'd like to ask Ms. Dewald if she's received a copy of that, or if you have received a copy of that updated document yet. I thought we were waiting on the law director for that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mosby?
yeah, I can answer that. They have not yet, Ms. Zorb. So it has not come back from the
Mr.
law.
President.
Ms. Bailey?
Mr. President, Mr. Mosby, do we have an idea of when it will be back?
I just spoke with him this evening. I suspect that it should be no later than Thursday.
So perhaps since everybody will be at public safety next Monday, could we do it like right before public safety or like right after rules and public policy? as a special meeting? Can everybody do that next Monday? It would be super quick. I would hope.
President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
I don't personally have a problem with that. Ms. Underwood, is it possible that, I mean, if we're just talking about a first reading or we need to suspend, is it possible to just do a 45-minute rules and public policy meeting? And that way we could have the special meeting, I guess, would be at 7:15 and then proceed into public policy, or I mean, public safety and the levy discussion.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I would like to thank Mr. Miller Novak for asking me to yield time from my committee. Mr. Miller Novak, I would like to say that I don't have an issue with that.
Mr. President.
Miller Novak.
Well, if that sounds good to everybody, since it sounds like we're gonna have good attendance at the public safety meeting, that we can do rules and public policy from 6:30 to 7:15, do the special meeting from 7:15 to 7:30, and then get into public safety and have Chief Fells on board for any discussion. And of course, you know, you can ask your questions there. Does that sound good to everybody?
So is there anybody that can't do a 7:15 Monday special meeting? I hear no dissenters to a 7:15 special meeting on Monday, January 25th.
Would you repeat that time again, please?
7:15 PM.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dewald?
because it's called a special meeting, according to our council rules, which I know we don't have to follow the rules, but they're in the council rules. So I thought I wanted to clarify. A written notice should be delivered to the place of the residence of all those involved, the decision makers. So if we take a vote during this meeting, we can eliminate that step of having that note put on everybody's doorstep. You can put it to the council to take a vote on whether they want this posted on their door, or will the email be sufficient?
Mr. President,
It's not a vote, it's more a poll, correct?
Well, it doesn't say in
To see
here how to
who-
clarify it. But
See
I
who
know that
wants it.
Mr. Miller Novak has mentioned before that it would just take a vote to change the rules. So I guess I'll leave that up to him to define what needs to be done at this point.
Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I mean, years past, we've always, the notice requirements for the individuals. So in the years past, I mean, long as I've been on council, the individuals that don't want notice on their door just kind of waive that right. Informed whoever's organizing the meeting that it's not necessary. So I, for one, always waive it. So I don't need the note on my door. You can just basically ask the individual members if they require it or not.
Ms. Bailey, did you have something?
yes, sir. Sorry. I just want to waive my right for a notice.
Okay.
I don't need one, Ms. Dewald.
Ms. Blythe, do you need a notice posted on your door?
No, email is just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Underwood?
No, I do not. Email is fine.
Thank you. Mr. Miller Novak?
I'm good. Just email works here. I'll be there anyways.
Thank you. Ms. Zorb?
I'm sorry, you broke up. Were you calling on me?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Do
Yeah.
you need a posting on your door?
I do not. An email is sufficient.
Thank you. Ms. Hartman?
No on door, email is fine.
Thank you. And Ms. Anderson?
I prefer an email.
Prefer an email.
Mhm.
Definitive. All right, thank you. Does that take care of your needs there, Ms. Dewald?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr.
All right, do
President.
we have any other? Yes, Ms. Zorb.
I'd like to offer my assistance if Ms. Dewald needs help posting in any of the public places, because I think some of that still needs to be
Well,
done. I will
um,
help you with that.
You're so kind.
Thank you.
We actually have two places now, the board and the city center, which I really do need to get that cleaned up. Mr. Mosby, if we could have another place for all that other paperwork, it kind of gets mixed up with the council stuff, but I just need to post it there and on the website. We've narrowed it down to that much anyway. But thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood, can I ask my question first, or do you want to
Sure.
go first?
no, I'll wait. I'm sorry.
So my question then is regarding links for the Zoom meeting. Will we get a separate link for the 7:15 meeting from any links for the other two meetings? Or is it all one link?
Mr. President, I will clarify, but I feel as though it's all one link.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Just so I'm clear, because I just plan on showing up, but did I hear it's committee and then council and then committee? Is
Yes,
the council meeting is
6:30 to
sandwiched?
7:15.
All right,
7:15 to 7:30 for the special meeting, and then 7:30 for the public safety meeting.
thank you.
That clarification via email will be fine with me, Ms. Zorb. That was some levity. It got lost.
No, I was chuckling. I was just muted. You couldn't hear me. Thank you.
All right. Any other new business?
Mr.
Mr.
President,
Ms. Underwood, I'm sorry. I totally blew you off after I went first. Sorry. Go ahead, Ms.
you're
Underwood.
fine.
You're on deck, Mr. Mosby.
Miss Dewald mentioned, with our new copier, the limited number of pages. So I was wondering if there's something we can do to ask Mr. Mosby to perhaps put some kind of code, so we know, like assign each person a code so we know who's using the copier and where our copies are going.
Mr. President, may I address that?
So she asked Mr. Mosby.
Okay.
You want to speak for him?
I don't know. Mr. Mosby, what's your pleasure?
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. That was interesting. I will yield to Mr. Wall.
All right.
So on first glance, there was an exceptional number of copies being made. And since I have voiced my concerns, I have kept diligently numbers of the copies that I make, and the copier now matches the copies that I make. So if there was any extra copying going on, it's not going on at the moment. However, there is a way I can have her name is Ashley. I wouldn't know what her title is, the modern office methods woman. So she could come in and set it up that we'd each have a password. And if that's what council prefers, that's fine. There is a way for me to personally lock it down myself that nobody can use it, but I don't want to take that stance at all. So,
So are you saying if you lock it down, not even you would be able to use it?
Oh, no, I could just, because I would know the password. So, but I do
All
want to
right.
make it available.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I
Mr. Mosby.
elucidate? Thank you. I also wanted just to add that when I did speak with the representative, he had also, and it was a gentleman that I spoke with, but he did explain to me that there were some copies that were made prior to delivery. So I also believe that that added to that number that Ms. DeWald was referring to. And as she mentioned, since then, obviously we haven't, I don't think, at least from my conversations with Mr. Wald, that we've had an abnormal or an anomaly as far as the number of copies printed. Would that be correct, Mr. Wald?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. President, I just have one other thing.
Yes, sir.
When I present this very quickly, I just wanted to do it and thank Ms. Blythe. This was from her inspiration. It was her idea, but I would like to just very quickly, I had determined that in order to keep council informed, that I would just give a very brief roster or personnel status. So I will just quickly run down what our personnel status is, and I'll do this on a quarterly basis. So right now in Public Works, we have 1 supervisor and 3 full-time employees. In our finance department, of course, we have a finance manager and 2 part-time employees. We have, of course, 1 police chief in our police department, 15 full-time police officers, 5 part-time police officers, 1 full-time clerk, and 3 part-time clerks. In our fire department, we have 3 full-time firefighters and 28 part-time firefighters. In Mayor's Court, we have 1 full-time clerk. And then finally in administration, there's me, the administrator, and then a full-time assistant. And that is our personnel status for as of right now.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mosby.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn
Mr. President, I'll second that
with
motion.
an N in it.
Yeah.
Funny. Both of you.
Can't make a mistake with this group anymore. They're all over us.
They are sharp.
Those of us that make mistakes. All right. So motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. Anderson. Ms. DeWald, please call the roll.
Okay, Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Miss Blythe,
Yes.
Miss Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Milanovic,
Yes.
Miss Orb,
Yes.
Miss Hartman,
Yes.
Miss Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.